I'm wondering how close these alocasia are to being ready to get cut back and moved inside. Borneo giants up there on the hill. Over here I have some portoras that I guess I'll bring them in. I wasn't planning on it. I planted these as annuals. I got these all for like $2 or $3 a bulb. It was a really great price. And planted them out here. Wasn't expecting them to do anything. Well, actually, that's not true. I was expecting them to do something, and then like 6 weeks passed, nothing happened. I planted a row of caladiums in here, and then boom, the alocasia came up. They took a long time to get going this year. Well, I guess our spring was fairly mild, so I don't know. Usually it's the heat that gets them going, so that must have been the reasoning. I thought I would bring y'all along and just talk about bringing these guys in. See how nice and loose that soil is? It lifted right out. Right out. Oh, look at that. See that perfect bulb? Oh, this is going to be easy. A little bit early, though. So, storing alocasia and colocasia, caladiums, xanthosoma, it's different depending on which ones you're growing. But there is some overlap within the various ways you can overwinter them. For the most part, it comes down to two things. Do you want to keep them semi-growing, fully growing, or do you want to just let them go dormant and plant a bulb back in the ground in the springtime? With these, I just want to put a bulb back in the ground during the springtime. So, something I like to do, talk about this in my caladium videos, during the growing season, when things are actively growing, I like to plant these up once they start growing and put on about 1 to 2 leaves. I like to make sure I apply compost and maybe some bone meal because that really helps build up nice strong bulbs. So this bulb maybe has doubled in size since I planted. These were very small when I put them in the ground. So what I like to do, I got a bit ahead of myself this time, but I will wait for the growth to slow, or if there's just gonna be random frost, then I don't do that at all. Then lift them up, get as much of the soil off the roots as I can, which I'm not gonna have to worry about with this one because that soil is so loose it lifted right out. And then I'm gonna cut this right around, I'd say, yeah, right around there. Table's full of things right now. Pardon the mess. Could use clippers for this, but these cut so easily. Let's go with a pair of scissors. There we go. So that's a couple of inches. And then I'll let that sit for about 2 days and let this dry some more. And then this will start to open up right here. And it'll be easier to see how much further I can take that down. Usually you can take them down to right at the very top of the bulb. I just like to wait a few extra days. It's just always helped me. Because there have been times when I went back too far, then ended up creating divots and holes, scars within the bulb, and then the bulb rots out and well, things just aren't very happy. Is that a lizard egg? That would be weird. Snake egg, some kind of fungus, maybe. I don't know what it is. You may need to rinse them off to get a lot of that dirt off. I'm not going to need doses. Oh, look at all the springtails. Got a whole entire little ecosystem down here. May need to rinse that dirt off. That's what I was saying. And then let that dry. Put it in a box or in a plastic bag, a crate, whatever you want to. You can add some vermiculite to it, which you'll want to moisten if you live in a very dry climate, but you just slightly moisten it, just a little bit. And store them someplace cool, dark, and dry. What I generally do with them is just put them in a paper bag or in a box and stuff them into a closet someplace and whip them back out around March probably and put them in a very small pot in my grow space and get them to wake up in there. That way they're going just a little bit. They just had a little bit of a head start when I'm ready to move them outside once the danger of frost has gone away. A lot of your colocasias, the esculentes specifically, which is just your basic elephant ear, going to be the same thing. They have a nice big bulb, often nicer bulb than you'll get on these alocasias. And I should mention, you can't do this with all alocasia. It really depends. So the portora, that makes a good bulb. But they don't all do that. So like your Fridex and, your polys, your more exotic types. This video is, we're not talking to you people. No, we're talking about ones that produce a nice big bulb. So you have your leucocasia, your gigantea, the Thai giants. They don't typically produce much of a bulb until they've gotten some time, some age on them, generally a few years. So with those, you're going to want to store those, and those more exotic alocasias and your colocasias that are runners and not ones that produce bulbs in a different manner, where I would just keep them in a pot, cut them back, and put them someplace that's gets some light and is not too warm, not too cool. My house, like 68 degrees, is probably the cool spot where I would keep it. And I just try and just kind of nudge them along through the winter time. I'm not trying to keep them growing actively, so they're looking just the same in the house as they did outside during the summertime. It's just not practical where I live with my climate. Winter air is very dry. It's too complicated I don't enjoy trying to get them through winter looking just big and lush. Even in my grow space where I have some more humidity and I have the heat, even in there, my goal is, you know, anywhere from 1 to 3 leaves on the plant at a time. Again, this is going to vary with what types you're growing. There are some of the more fancy alocasias where they're much more complicated. For the most part, this works. Works for caladiums too, whether you want to put them in a box and store them as a bulb or keep them in a pot and just don't let it dry out for too terribly long. But I mean, I'll probably let them dry out for like maybe 2 weeks, as long as they're someplace nice and cool. And then I'm not trying to soak the plant when I water. I'm just letting water run through it maybe one time, and that's it, just to re-moisten the soil. But I'm not trying to keep it wet, right? Don't want them sitting in water. The biggest risk you run with storing bulbs is desiccation, and then the opposite of that, which is too much moisture. Things I like to do to get around that, well, for me, pack things in perlite. It doesn't hold on to moisture. It lets airflow around the plant some. Not everybody needs to do that, though. Sometimes that's too much for a lot of climates. But if I'm going to keep something in my garage during the winter, it has to have it, because the garage is very moist and humid. In the house, different story. I'll use vermiculite. It could use just, you know, peat moss, coconut. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is that it's staying dark, dry, and cool. If I notice any signs of rot, when you do that monthly check that none of us really do, but we're supposed to do on our bulbs that we're storing, going to look for soft spots. You can see the bottom of this bulb actually has some mush in it. Something's been eaten on this, which I did not notice when I ripped it up. Yeah, okay, look at that. Yeah, springtails in there doing their job. So it's a good thing I pulled this out when I did, because this bulb is going to need some treatment. I have options here. It's not dead. The plant itself is okay. I'm going to need to let this dry out. I could pour some peroxide on there, let that sit, rinse it off, and then hit this with some cinnamon. Pour a whole bunch of cinnamon on there. That'll help dry it out. Or a sulfur powder. I prefer the sulfur powders, but you need to be careful with them because they are, they're toxic. Copper-based fungicides. That's a good way to go too. I could use that instead of the peroxide. That's going to help take care of any mush or anything that's growing in there, or I should say decaying in there. Make sure that it is fully dried out and good to go back into storage. However, it doesn't mean it's going to work, right? Because we're talking months need to pass between now and when these plants can be put out again. So it really is hopeful thinking to think that I'm going to store something that has started to rot and that'll be okay come springtime. I don't know. The best bet with something like this would actually be to go ahead and clean it up, that copper-based fungicide, and put it into a container, I think, and start it off growing and keep treating the soil with copper flushes and get it to grow out, push out all that dead stuff, or cut off the dead stuff. That's what you really should do. I'm thinking and speaking with my thoughts in just a total stream here. Sorry. Yeah, cutting that rot off, probably a good idea. As long as you still have about 75% of that bulb left and the center is still intact, there's still roots from the firm parts, has potential to be okay. But this isn't one that I would store. So if you have bulbs or corms that come up looking like this with that mushiness in the bottom, yeah, maybe don't store it with anything else. Store it up separately, because whatever's going on there can spread to whatever else you have that you're storing. This mess can be contagious, so that's something to keep in mind. If you do notice, when you do your monthly check on the plant, that you're seeing some rot, some decay, or the opposite, things are dry, we can talk about that too. Things are looking mushy and gross, and nasty, pull them out, get all the mush and nastiness off, see if there's still something firm in the middle, like I was talking about. That center is still okay, and the majority of the bulb still looks okay, but there's just a lot of mush on it. Clean that off, peroxide, copper-based fungicide, and then dry it out, which is going to be cinnamon, sulfur powder. I'm sure there are other options. It's just what I'm used to using. Let them sit out, make sure that's fully dried, and then go ahead and plant it up in something that drains well. If you don't want it to hold on to too much moisture, and get it someplace warm and bright. That warmth is really important. You want to get the plant growing so it can push through that rotting and start to develop a nice, healthy bulb and corm. If they are desiccated, much easier, right? It's kind of the same scenario though. You can go ahead and just pot them up. It might just mean go ahead and get them going. Put them into some soil, lightly moisten. It doesn't need to be a deep pot of soil, just enough to cover the top and cover the bottom by, you know, an inch on top, inch on the bottom. Get that moist, put it someplace that's warm with some light, get them growing. Or go ahead and take those, put them in some water. Let them soak in some water for, I don't know, half an hour, an hour. It's going to depend on how much they're desiccated until you see them start to just plump up just a smidge. Set them out to dry, put them back in storage, make sure that water's not too warm also. Moisten some vermiculite, add that into whatever you're storing them in, and that can help regenerate them too and help breathe some life back into those so they don't shrivel up too much. And if you have a box of bulbs, rhizomes, corms, whatever you're storing, and you find just one that has some rot on it, I would take out all of them and spray them all down with a copper-based fungicide just to be safe, and then put them back into storage and change whatever you have them stored in. So if you're using vermiculite, perlite, dump it all out, start all the way over, because like I said, whatever it is that has happened with that could spread to the other plants very easily and very, very quickly. It is also entirely possible, I should say, with this plant, that bulb may have been bigger. I may have just ripped it in half when I pulled it out of the ground like that. It's generally better to get underneath them with a fork and lift them up. That's really the proper way to do it. That ground's so loose over there. I thought, oh, it'll lift up, and it did, but only because it was rotting. Interesting, because we've had a drought going on, but there is irrigation over there, and I've been running it heavily, so that gets too much because the sun is not out as long this time of year. It hasn't been. You know, we lose an hour of sunlight basically per month where I live from August until now. It's mid-October at this point, or late October when this video comes out. I don't know when the video is going to come out. But so the last month or so, they haven't been getting anywhere near as much light, so that watering needed to be reduced as well. But the line that they're on for irrigation waters a lot of other stuff that would not want it to be reduced. So, yeah, it's just the way things panned out. Yeah, reduce watering for a few weeks before doing any of this is usually a good idea, but typically where I live, nature just does that for us. When I saw the springtail on there, I was like, oh, what's going on? I mean, I expect springtails. They're good. They're our little groundskeepers. But when I saw a whole bunch of them, I was going, oh no. They're in there cleaning up something that shouldn't be happening. Canna's looking lovely, isn't it? He's just been thriving through the drought. Okay, hey, that's all. Just some tips, tricks, suggestions. Add on down in the comments some things that you do, some, you know, ways to get around certain problems with troubleshooting. It's hard to basically come up with what everybody needs because we all have different environments. So it has to be fairly broad. And the whole point of this video wasn't necessarily how to store them, it's how to handle storing them. Guess I could have said that during the beginning. Hey, hope everybody's doing well, having a great day, great life, and it's going absolutely beautifully for you. And of course, as always, and most importantly, everybody, keep on growing. Bye-bye.